Hey, what is going on, YouTube? Aaron here. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day wherever you are in the world. And we are back with another top 5 video for World of Warships Legends. And in today's video, we are going over the top 5 most consistent ships in World of Warships Legends. But before we get into the video, I want to take this moment here and make a brief announcement. A few days ago, many of you already know this, but a very close friend of mine, Mr. Durka Games, said that he is no longer making Legends content, and that is a crying shame because he was a fantastic community contributor. Beyond him being an excellent CC, both with his content, his explanation, his video editing, he was just a great person. He's a great dude. We knew each other beyond the game, and I know he's just going to be as successful in whatever he does. So Durka, there could be a lot more said, but I still remember when I torped you so long ago. I hope he remembers that. He definitely does, but he's a gentleman. Durka, you're a gentleman, a scholar, and it was a pleasure sailing with you. Anyway, guys, on to the video here. It's hard to be kind of serious after that, but we're gonna treat it lighthearted. He's still around. He didn't go anywhere. He's just not making Legends content, and I totally understand that. This game is getting boring, stale, repetitive, and I don't even know why I'm still doing these videos, to be honest. I have fun creating content, but I know with other, extenuating circumstances that this definitely goes to the bottom of the list, and I can understand that. But starting off this list here, we're going to drop down to tier 5. And guys, when I talk about consistent ships, let me make my head just a little bit bigger here. Can I grab the camera? No, there we go. When I say consistent, I don't mean OP. I don't mean overpowered. And I feel like, especially because and Spartan messaged me before he kind of countered my video with the Iowa saying like it's not power creep. Like he did that just to get reactions. That's half of what YouTubers do per se. But a lot of people don't understand like power creep and things like that. So when I say consistent, I mean ships that you can take out and in most games you feel comfortable, and you can perform well. And again, as with all of my top 5 videos, or most of them anyway, this list is subjective, meaning it is my opinion. But starting off here at tier 5, for number 5 on my list, we are going to go with, well, it's actually 2 ships, the Queen Elizabeth and the Warspite. More specifically, the Warspite. I absolutely love this ship. It was one of my straight go-tos in World of Warships Legends. Now, most of this list is going to be older ships or ships, and mostly tech tree ships. In the same regard of the Warspite, the Queen Elizabeth is just as good in my opinion. I know there are some slight differences. I believe the QE has the short fuse AP. Someone's going to correct me on that, just like I was wrong on my Napoli gun caliber the other day. But regardless, it's late at night. I'm tired. I've worked a full day in trading and such. But anyway, the Warspite B, and the Queen E are my picks here at number 5. And I decided to keep this list in sort of a little bit of an order here. Moving on to number 4 at tier 6 here is a personal favorite of mine. And you guys know I hate the Shimakaze players and Japanese destroyer players, but the Shimakaze, or the Akatsuki rather, is just one of the most consistent ships in my opinion. This ship is just good all around. Now, of course, when you get to the higher tiers, radar is more prevalent. With the introduction of carriers, all of these ships, got essentially what was a shadow, not necessarily a shadow nerf, but a shadow nerf because carriers can essentially hard counter destroyers. Well, the carrier players who know what they're doing anyway. And that was sort of, taken back when they changed the spotting mechanics, which works in some regard. But regardless here, I think the Akatsuki is very consistent at the tier. Tier 6 often gets, down tiered or up tiered rather for a lot of tier 5 ships. And with how slow battleships are at the tier and how good these torpedoes and this concealment is of basically all Japanese destroyers, but this ship in particular, you're basically a mini Shimakaze at the tier. This ship I haven't played in such a long time, and the stats, this is kind of what my early days playing the game, are fairly consistent, you know what I mean? Win rate isn't the best, but this is a lot of solo. XP could be a little bit better, but this is tier 6. Average damage is good, and track damage is a little low, but spotting is also pretty decent. 2.6 ships per game there. Is pretty decent. Again, your job in a destroyer is to spot and to cap, but that is my ship pick for number 4 on most consistent ships. On top of, one final note for this ship, on top of having devastating torpedoes, the guns on this ship are actually, and most Japanese destroyers are actually pretty good. Now they're not great in the reload, but the alpha strike from the HE on these guns, you can, if you know how to maneuver and angle yourself, especially kind of at these middle tiers here, you can outplay a few even gunboats. But yeah, that's my pick for number 4 there, and I think that ship is still really consistent, even with, you know, carriers in the game. And moving on to my pick for number 3, most consistent ship. And this ship has definitely been power crept a little bit, especially with recent ships that have been released. But this battleship, oh, I'm teasing it here, is very consistent in my opinion, and still a ship that I play to this day. The Jean Bart here, nobody tag hustle in this video, because if you know what that's about, well, you've been following my channel and you're probably a good lad. Actually, you're probably not a good lad, but anyway, Jason knows, Tuna knows. But anyway, here, the Jean Bart is one of the most consistent battleships in the game, in my opinion. It's got great armor. Now, it does have 32. It's sort of coded in 32 here, which is susceptible to 203 millimeter spam per se, especially the Americans. But if you can, get a flank, and this is what these ships excel at because of their engine boost, obviously, and their gun placements. All the guns are in the front, right? Which is weird for the French. They should be in the back. Wheeze. Another inside joke there, but these ships excel at getting flanks, and the Jean Bart especially. And really what makes this ship just truthfully great at tier 7 here is the addition of the main battery reload booster. Now, this ship was released a very long time ago, and even after she was released, the Richelieu as well is a very consistent ship. Now, of course, you don't get access to that main battery reload booster, and I think if I had to choose between the two, I would definitely choose the Jean Bart. But these two ships, again, talking about kind of both the premium version of it, are very consistent, right? The attracted damage of the Richelieu that these French battleships can take, especially at these higher tiers, is very important. A lot of players don't understand that in battleships you are meant to be the tank. Now, we always talk about this. There's a line in either direction, right? You can't just YOLO it in the Jean Bart, die in 3 minutes, and say, "Oh, I attracted damage." And on the inverse. And I actually remember this was one of the first campaigns I think I got and was like excited for, and I think I actually bought it out like a few days ahead of time, or like a week ahead of time, the Jean Bart rather, and I would just kind of sit there and bow tank, right? And this is the trap that a lot of battleship players fall into, is they think that the game should come to them, that players just need to sail in front of them broadside, and if they don't, it's like, oh, well, my team didn't do anything. It's like, no, you didn't do anything. Now, that could be said for a host of different classes and ships in this game, but sitting at number 3 on my list here is the Jean Bart with sort of the Richelieu in addition there. Now, we're going to go out of order here and all the way up to L tier, and what is it going to be? Is it going to be an American? French? No, it is going to be a British destroyer. Sitting in at number 2, the Daring, and pretty much all British destroyers with the exception of maybe the Jutland. I mean, really, it's just the Daring and the Lightning to me that are just, these ships are so consistent. The British destroyers are a true jack of all trades, master of none. With the short range, long duration hydro and sonar here, and your short duration smoke screens, with kind of this play style, you are just super consistent. On top of that, you have pretty decent guns. They're not, like the Gdansk or something like that, or the Kaba, and pretty decent torpedoes. However, they're 10-kilometer range, so not really long range, and you don't have the absolute best reload time if you're running more of a gunboat build, which these ships definitely are. I ran torpedoes on these ships, on the Daring and the Lightning a while back, and the Lightning is a little bit better for torpedoes per se, because I don't know, the guns. It's kind of that mixed bag, because these ships are just kind of good in either direction. You could definitely focus on either end, but you couple that with the heals that the ship gets, and it's just a good overall consistent destroyer in my opinion. And the stats typically sort of speak for themselves here. Again, not the... there are I'm gonna say this and people are gonna get mad, but there are better stats out there for this. But pretty good average XP here, decent potential, and good, decent overall damage for a destroyer here, and consistent with the spots here that we had at the with the Akatsuki. But with that selection there, that brings us to our number one choice. And if you didn't think if you guys know me, you knew what this selection at number one was going to be. Nope, not the Codex. We're gonna go to the service record here. We're going to go to our most played ship, the USS Baltimore. Guys, the Baltimore is the most consistent ship to me in the game. It has survived the test of time. Now, there are certainly better ships potentially at the tier with the Anchorage. That definitely sort of power crept the Baltimore in a sense with that smoke and torpedo potential. But the Baltimore is just so consistent. The American AP, the HE, with Einstein and a radar, you are the ultimate cap contestant. You're just good at everything. You have decent DPM, and this applies essentially to all of the heavy cruisers, the American heavy cruisers, with radar, really. The Indianapolis, the Des Moines, obviously, the Buffalo is still really good, but sitting here at tier 7, I think this is probably one of the most consistent ships at the tier here. You are coded in 27, which does get overmatched by 406s. You are safe from 15s though, and I think the Baltimore sort of is the better, if we had to choose one, it would definitely be the Baltimore, because there are a lot more 15-inch battleships, 15-inch caliber gun battleships at tier 7 than there are at higher tiers. Obviously, the higher tier you go, there are typically a few more 406. There are more 406s and higher calibers that can overmatch you. Now that being said, the ship can relatively be easily countered against higher DPM ships, the Weimar, the Mines, other ships that know how to angle. But if you can catch other cruisers broadside, and you can absolutely obliterate destroyers with your HE and radar combination. The keys to this ship, though, are getting it in the right position. If you do not position correctly, you will get absolutely abused. You can get overmatched by 406s, as we just mentioned. And she's not the easiest ship to maneuver once you're out of position. But if you can find yourself an island, hug it near the cap, you are basically a giant thorn in the side of the enemy. Now, of course, that ship does, that position does rely on supportive team play. If you allow a destroyer to go out wide, or a battleship to get your backside or something like that, your teammates rather, then yeah, you're going to be basically shit out of luck. But in terms of just overall consistency, I can go out and play the Baltimore right now. I can have fun. I can know that I'm going to get great performance out of this ship. And something I didn't really mention along the way is these American cruisers are decent. They're not great, but they're decent at anti-aircraft, right? That's sort of the American cruisers is like the scene in The Matrix. Guns. Lots of guns. And of course it can be made better. Now the Rochester would be maybe a little bit of a better pick for AA there, which is definitely more AA focused. But even without like its specific AA build, it's average, I would say, against AA compared to like the German cruisers or maybe the Russian cruiser, something like that. Now, of course, you could throw the Wichita into this list as well, but the Wichita to me is almost, it's kind of like you're cheesing, it's a little bit more maneuverable. The Citadel is a little bit more hidden in the Wichita, so it's just one of those where it's sort of just a little bit better. You get better HE performance out of the Wichita, but for me, it's definitely the Baltimore sitting at my top pick there at number 1. And now begins the absolute rage fest. No, I'm just kidding. Most of these comments are pretty good for these videos, but a lot of people just don't like understand. When I say power creep, it's like, well, the eye was still good. That's not what power creep means. You you don't understand what power creep means. But consistent, you know, can fit sort of a host of different definitions. I know a lot of people are going to say like strong OP ships, but you know, saying the Gdansk is consistent right now is, it's like, well, yeah, because it's got sort of a broken trait, you know what I mean? And I didn't really want to choose something like the Louisiana either, where it's just, I don't know, you know, to me, it's got to be a little bit older ships, so, you know, a lot more tech tree ships, in my opinion. But that was my list. Let me know what your guys' list is, and I will take that into consideration for my next video. On top of that, in the comments, let me know the next top 5 that we should do. I don't know why I made my head smaller. Let's make it ginormous here. Whee! I love you guys. Have a great day. I'm out. Peace.